And we are live on AVT. This is going to be episode 9 with my featured guest, Stephen Leapley. And we will be talking about the topic, can atheists and Christians coexist? I think they absolutely can. But Stephen, before we move forward, tell me a little bit about yourself.
First of all, you're wrong. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that. Thanks for having. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk. Yes, my name is Stephen Leapley. I live in San Diego, but I was actually born and raised in the Midwest. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, close to you, as we were just discussing. Mm-hmm. And I'm married. I've got 8 children.
That's a lot.
Well, for some. See, I'm a writer. So I do a lot of copywriting, technical writing, ghostwriting, that kind of stuff. I'm on my 5th career, I believe, is what I call it. I was in the military for a while.
Thank you for serving.
Oh, appreciate that. I did 10 years in the Navy in the 90s, and then was also a paramedic for some years, and then went into corporate world, and then now I am in my own business. I do have a background, I guess. I guess this is where I tell everybody why I'm qualified to be on your show. I have a background I have a master's degree in psychology and a undergrad degree in biblical studies, which is essentially a master's in divinity without being fully comprehensive of Hebrew and Greek, meaning taking it as a second language. Essentially, the degree is the same. That's the main difference. So. I am an ordained chaplain, so I am, although I don't use it very often anymore, or at least currently. So
it sounds like you're more qualified than I am to do this show.
Thank you for coming on my show, Ethan. I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So yeah, that's it's a little bit about me. My family and I, we live a fairly minimalist lifestyle, and we. To say that, meaning we live in an RV. We're full-time RVers, although we are stationary full-time RVers.
Okay.
So there's a little bit difference depending on who you talk to about that. But yeah, I guess more specifically or better, I guess I could say we're tiny home livers.
I like that.
So,
by the way, hi Kim. Thank you. So first question, what do you think an atheist is? Or what is your impression of what an atheist is?
Honestly, I think an atheist is someone who has more belief than anybody else, because to me, an atheist is someone who I won't say denies the belief of God, but denies I'll say, generally speaking, denies the belief of God.
Okay. So typically, and let me know if this lines up to similar to what you know, atheism only refers to a lack of belief. So I personally, I can't speak for other atheists, but I personally will never make the claim that God does not exist. And that's one of the reasons I do this show, is because to me, the truth is out there and I want to get to it. If that leads to God, if that leads to Allah, if that leads to Hare Krishna, I don't care where it leads. I want to believe as many true things as possible. So I would hope there are other like-minded atheists like me that do the same. But you'll never hear the words out of my mouth saying there is no God, because that's dishonest, and I can't substantiate that.
I like that. I appreciate that, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know, like, as we were talking earlier, before, not today, but just in talking before, about, excuse me, I won't make the joke I made earlier.
I don't remember the joke, but you can. Oh, I'm wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You will not offend me. You can say whatever you want.
I'll do that the next time I cough.
Kevin, that would be incorrect. So I'm an agnostic atheist, but atheism only refers to a lack of belief. Agnostic refers to knowledge. So I am unconvinced, but I also don't know. Sorry. Go ahead, Stephen.
That's good. I don't even know what I was talking about now. That was good. That was a great. I am. So the apps. Oh, what we were talking about earlier is and I'm sure we'll probably delve into this a lot more here shortly, but or now, is that those hardcore lines. I know as we were talking before, we were talking about how, you know, when we were having the discussion even before we decided, we were like, okay, what is the hardline beliefs that we have, and what are the things that we, because I think, did you tell me somebody was on there and was very hardlined with you?
Yeah. So Joel, he's a former pastor. He is, I guess the best way to define him, and I'm not speaking for him, he is a biblical Christian and an apologist.
That's right.
So to give an example, he has a very hard line. So, for example, when I asked him for evidence for God, his reply was, he won't let me be the judge of God, so he couldn't supply it for me. So it kind of stops the conversation in its tracks. And it kind of makes it very hard to find agreeable terms and move forward.
Yes. I think that's so that's a great, actually, for me, I feel like it's a great segue to begin to talk about, you know, the coexistence of somebody who is an atheist and someone who's a Christian. Right. I think I think there's a couple of things that really kind of create foundation. First we have to, first of all, I think you have to agree on what the term is, the term for atheism, right, and the term for Christianity. And there's, you know, again, like, there's some things that I know and then don't necessarily come back up into the forefront of my mind because I'm not on them every day. You know, for example, my definition of atheism, I didn't even go look it up or think about that. And just as we were talking to, I know you don't, and neither do I. We don't necessarily have an agenda here other than just to discuss what's, you know, the possibility of, is this something that could work or something that could work or could not work? Right. And I believe actually the answer is yes and no.
I agree with that. I think it depends on we have to agree on a few things to get to that. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Completely. I think I think actually when this is over, all said and done, I have a book I'm going to send you to read. Do you read at all?
Yes.
Perfect.
Although my ADHD gets a little out of control, so at times I lose focus very easily. So I have to take the time to focus as hard as I can, because it's like a bomb going off in my head occasionally.
I don't even know if it is an audiobook. It's so old. There's an old German theologian named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and he's written a few books, but the biggest book that had an impact on my life, which I would say, to answer your question for today, would be why yes we can. It's a book called Ethics, and so I think there's when it comes to like leveling the playing field for a yes, there has to be, or no, for anything really, there needs to be a certain level of ethics that both sides come to the table with and agreement with, and a sense of agreement on morality. And I think from a moral standpoint, that's probably where the biggest rub comes in between an atheist. I agree. And so I'd love to chat about that here in a little bit.
Absolutely. So, question:
Yes.
Where do you stand on church and state separation? Because for me, that is the most important factor in determining if an atheist and a Christian can coexist. So, for example, I personally think churches should be taxed. I don't think they should have a special exemption. I don't get a special exemption for being an atheist. Therefore, I think it needs to be the same across the board, not just with taxes, but everything. I don't think God should be on any money. I don't think it should be in our pledge. I think we need a true hard line. And if we respect that hard line, we can move forward. Now, to be clear, I'm not offended. Like, I don't pick up the money like some atheists do and be like, oh, it says God on it, I'm so mad. Like, honestly,
I'm not going to use this.
Screw this money. I'm done with it. Like, no, I would. It rarely, the only time it comes up is in a conversation like this. Outside of that, I really pay it no mind. But there are people who do, and that's why I think the separation of church and state is extremely important for us to be able to essentially live together.
That's a great question. I think, and of course, I mean, I only speak for me.
Oh, of course.
But I believe and agree in separation of church and state. I think to answer your question about like the taxation piece of churches, I think if they're operating as a nonprofit, then there should be no difference in that tax. And I think religious organizations should operate as a nonprofit because it helps keep the money. And generally speaking, it helps keep the money free. And so any nonprofit, I should be able to go online and search any nonprofit and look at their finances and look at where the money's. It doesn't matter to me. I don't necessarily personally care where the money goes. That's organization specific.
Absolutely.
But as far as like a religious organization, I feel like they should be a nonprofit and they should operate as a nonprofit because that's the best way, in my opinion, for them to demonstrate accountability, for them to demonstrate like if I call myself to believe in Jesus and I'm going to run a group of people publicly, and to influence others, then I shouldn't be hiding anything.
No, I agree. So point one, we both found our first agreeable term on moving forward in a Christian atheist society.
Woohoo!
We're on track. We got one.
we might get 3 of 4. We might.
Hey, maybe we'll be lucky and get everything.
Well, we'll see. But separation church and state, back to outside of the business aspect of it.
Right.
To me, I look at like the Star Spangled Banner, or the Pledge of Allegiance, or not the Pledge of Allegiance. When we first did the Pledge of Allegiance, the term "under God" wasn't in there, and then later on it was added. Same thing with money. So I grew up. Let me backtrack just like 30 seconds here. Sure. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home.
Same.
And so, oh, you did?
Yes. And my mom's watching, and she is a Christian. And
Hi, Mom.
Very much hopes that one day I will come back to Jesus. In fact, she constantly attributes my kindness and compassion to that of Jesus. And so does Larry DeLindy. He's one of the Christians I speak to regularly. Yes. So
we're live, right? I guess.
Yeah, you're getting me. You got to keep throwing those nuggets at me.
I got a good scientific nugget for you a little bit later, but we'll talk about
yes.
that. I'm not a scientist by any means.
Me neither.
But I do. I like to keep simple things simple, and I like to keep complex things for people who like to be complex. And I like to try to break complex things down into simplicity because there's a beauty in simplicity. Because when you think of things in simple terms, it's so much easier to be able to interact with each other, live together, coexist, if you will. And so, but back to separation of church and state. If the government came out and said we're taking "In God We Trust" off of our coins, or off of paper money, if they came out and they said we're going to remove "Under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance, I don't have a beef about that. Wow. We are a religious free society. I feel like one piece of making common ground is, and you see this in the Bible. Even Jesus stood in his truth, but he didn't defame somebody else who didn't believe him. Mm. He just said, you have a choice. You can either believe me or you don't. Right. And, you either follow me or you don't. And so I think we live in a society where our nation thrives on freedoms. And so I don't think I don't think having a forced religion, is required. I don't think it's needed. I think it convolutes the discussion a lot of times. And, people bring it up. There's people who are non-believers that'll say, well, they make this think, well, why isn't God we trust? I don't really care. And there's an interesting concept about that, because one time I had said that to somebody and they're like, well, of course you don't care because you're a Christian. And so the deeper question for that even goes back into, I think, into judgments and there's a lot of discussion. A lot of people will debate back and forth about, well, you don't judge me, you can't judge me, right. and Christians will be like, well, yes, we're called to judge you, and when you read that in the Bible, it actually talks about my ability to judge somebody else's belief system really comes down to, if somebody else calls themselves a Christian, then I have the duty, the obligation, the right, the authority, if you will, as a believer to question and judge another believer. Okay. And walk them, if you said, well, I'm a believer in Jesus, I'll say, okay, let's talk about that. What does that look like to you? And that rub that people have is one reason why in the Christian community there are hundreds of denominations.
Absolutely.
And that's so real quick, growing up Christian, was there a certain denomination that you were a part of growing up?
We were non-denominational, and to be clear, we were very conservative, but not overly Christian. So we didn't go to church all the time, although my mom obviously wanted us to. But yeah, so we're not. I wouldn't say we were the Christians you were, or as my mother would say, Christians in the traditional sense. Okay,
because there is the denominations came out of you probably know this, but like the Nazarenes, or which is very prevalent in the Midwest. That denomination, in the Bible it says, do not get drunk. Doesn't say you can't drink. It says do not get drunk. And
really?
So yes, there's nowhere in the Bible that I have found that says you cannot drink.
But it does say don't get drunk?
It does say don't get drunk. So for example,
I'm using that. There's someone in the comments that I'm going to use that on after the show. I'm not going to call him out, but I'm going to give him a hard time now. So thank you.
Well, remember, we'll come back. Don't let me lose track of this judgment thing here. So there is a, so like the Nazarenes, that group of people, becoming a denomination of Christianity, saying, so the Bible says don't get drunk. Well, we're not even going to drink, because if we drink, it could put us into the place where we could get drunk. So if we avoid alcohol at all, then there's no sense that we'll even go down that path of being drunk, because we're not even drinking it. That is completely okay. I have no problem with that. I have a problem when somebody says, "Oh, if you drink, then you're not really a Christian," because it's not. There's no mandate for that. The Apostle Paul in the New Testament, which wrote most of the New Testament, talks a lot about Christian liberties that we have. Right. So and this is like really spot on with how people can coexist in general too, because we have liberties. So I have the liberty to drink or not.
Of course.
If I want to get drunk, and then we can debate that if that's good or bad. I personally don't like to. I have been.
Same. I don't like drinking either.
I have been in the past, but I don't live my life around that. But when somebody tells me, especially somebody who's a Christian, tells me, well, you're either not a believer because you drink, or you're not going to heaven because you drink. There's liberty there. I have the liberty and the ability to make that decision on my own. Now, with that being said, I will also say that the Bible also talks about not causing your brother to stumble. and this is primarily speaking believer to believer. But I think there's the bigger picture there is, if you're, say, an alcoholic, and I don't have no issue with alcohol and I like to drink, even though I have the privilege or the ability to drink, it would be wrong of me to show up in your presence and just start drinking, especially if we weren't, meeting at a bar, right, so to speak. So I think we have an obligation to live a certain way, but there's within the liberties that we have to be aware. And I think a lot of that is common sense. And if we keep back to, you're right, Marcia, denominations do come from interpretation. Thank you. If you, oh man, I lost my train of thought. That was a great comment.
Sorry, I gotta stop doing that. I'll wait till it's done to put them on the screen. I apologize.
That's fine. That's fine because it's an interpretation which it's good because even within within Christianity, the way that you interpret the Bible is different. I grew up, with the understanding of I'm interpreting the Bible the way my parents taught me about it.
Right.
And mostly I would say it's spot on. When I ended up in Bible college, there's and this is where a good rub happens too between someone who's a believer and someone who's a non-believer is how do you interpret the Bible? Right. Because there's people who's like, well, it's did the flood really happen? Did Jonah really spend 3 days in a whale? How could you spend 3 days alive in a whale? So some of the stories in the Bible, I think there's a really good book about biblical interpretation, and part of how you look at the Bible is if you read it at face value. Mm-hmm. And then when face value doesn't necessarily make sense, then look at it. It could be allegorical. So I believe the Bible is part allegorical. It's part physical faith. Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess my question would be why? Because to me, why not just lay everything out as is? Why play this? Hey, I want you to figure it out for yourself, knowing full well we are humans and we mess things up. Maybe if it had just gotten right from the get-go, we would only have then, one religion.
True. So a couple of things. So my belief on my stance with the Bible, is and it actually came out of seminary when I didn't go to seminary until I was in my 30s. Okay. And I actually walked away from the church from 18 to 24, 20. I didn't necessarily walk away from God, but I walked away from actively practicing my faith.
Really? Yes.
I probably reread my Bible maybe 10 times in 6 or 7 years. And so, and then came back, and that's when I met my wife, and then life has happened since then. So, I'd actually we can talk offline about coming back because there's a lot of areas in my, yeah, there's a lot of backstory that is cool to talk about too, which has helped bring me to the point where I'm excited. I was excited to come on with you today and talk about this. So I think to answer your question before we lose it, because it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Is inside the Christian community, there's the belief of predestination versus free will. If God knows everything and He's predestined everything, then why does this happen or why does that happen?
Right.
And I think that there's predestination and free will. I think if God predestined everything and we lived exactly to that without any free will, we would all be robots. Okay. If you think about it in that sense, like if God directs every single one of my moves, then there's no need for me to even have a brain, because he's directing everything. I liken it to, and I don't know if this is a good word picture or not, but I liken it to like when we're kids and you're playing Matchbox cars, or if you're playing with Legos. You know, you are nobody moves, nothing moves unless you move it. Correct. You know, and there's people that are like on the far side of predestination like that. Like they believe God controls every single second of your time. I think God is in control of the world. I think I look at it like this. I think God has a predestined life for us like this. Let me see if I can do this. Like here's God's life for us. And he gives us the free will, and our free will kind of does this. And I think, you know, and it's kind of like a radio wave, if you will. And I think the closer we get to that line, the closer we are living in God's predestined will for our life.
Okay. I want to backtrack for one moment. So I have a 2-part question.
Okay.
One is from the audience, or one is a comment from the audience, and one is mine. So just a hard line. If right now there was, we were able to vote to either have under God removed or leave it on, knowing that our society is growing in atheists and knowing that we're trying to coexist, where would you vote?
Ooh, now you're putting me on the hot seat, aren't you? That's funny because I don't. My initial thought would be I would just vote to keep it, because to remove it would mean we'd have to print a whole bunch more money.
Well, right.
Not that that's not happening right now. Not that the value of the dollar is going down right as we speak, but if I was the deciding vote, I'll put it. I'll even make myself even harder. If I.
So it's all on you now.
It's all on me. All on me. If I was the deciding vote, I don't care.
No,
like
I know. And a lot of
but if it meant, you know what? I see where you're going with this.
Thank you.
I see where you're going with this. You know what? I'll vote to take it off.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because my faith and my belief and my relationship with Jesus, and whether it's my personal relationship with Jesus, whether it's my corporate relationship with Jesus, which the Bible talks about both, regardless of which relationship it is, that whatever happens in the world doesn't necessarily have a bearing on my relationship, because my relationship with God isn't based on whether in God we trust is on the money.
Right.
It's not if removing in God we trust from money means that there are 100,000 X amount of atheists or agnostics that go, okay, cool, and they want to have a conversation, or they're more open to have a conversation because they don't feel. I almost feel like Christianity is this like white privilege kind of thing, and
I can agree with you there.
And it's funny.
It surprised me, but I agree with you.
It's because it's I don't feel like it is, and that's another good conversation and I'll probably get called out on some people because I don't necessarily believe in the concept of white privilege, and I only say that because I saw this really cool video of I can't remember the black guy's name who doesn't believe in it either, and he was questioning this girl. We can talk about that later, but my thought process comes from the fact that Jesus doesn't call me to put his name on money. He doesn't call me to put his name anywhere. He calls me to live a life. So, and that's that is that's the one thing that I learned from the book Ethics from Bonhoeffer was this more of the social what's the word? This is why I should have written something down. Don't get old. Whatever you do, don't grow up.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying very hard not to.
I try and it doesn't work very well. Social justice. I knew it would come to me. It's the impact of social justice. Like, I think the next place where you might go with taking money off is in the gay marriage area, which I also like. I feel like when the movement said we want equal rights, that if the right, so to speak, would have said, okay, we have a problem calling it marriage. Let's think of something. I was right about the time when I was reading Ethics, and I was like there's a humanistic approach to life. There's that can we coexist? Absolutely. If we all agree that we're all human and we're all on a journey, then yeah, and everybody just by virtue of being alive should have freedoms and rights and abilities. I don't think that should be.
Someone's gonna think I paid you. Did you come on here to agree with me? Because we're agreeing a whole lot.
I think there's a lot of things that we can agree on.
Yes.
And I'm watching the time too. So we'll
follow up to that.
Okay.
So the first recorded marriage was in 2350 BC, and from how it always appears to me is many Christians feel they have ownership of the marriage idea. And it's confusing to me why someone would want to stop the rights of somebody else. Like, how is two men getting married personally going to insult or affect you in any way? Just let it happen is how I see it. Like, why not? It's not hurting you.
So we talked about this before. I have a bunch of hardline beliefs too.
Yeah.
And I think we all do.
Of course.
And my hardline belief on that is I believe that God created marriage. When you talk about the first recorded marriage, who was that?
Let me Google that. I'll have to Google 1 second. First recorded evidence of marriage ceremonies united one man and one woman from about 2350 BC in Mesopotamia. I cannot find the name.
That's Mesopotamia.
Apologies.
That's not even. I said it wrong too. Mesopotamia. There we go. This is my science class coming back to me now. So this is actually where a big wedge can come in. Is I'm not very scientific in that fact matter. Like I've studied it and I've read it, right. And I know there are people who like live their entire life around that concept. And then there's the Christian side, which to a non-believer can look a lot like feeling and not
so I
wish I could marry my cat so when I die he can have all my money.
Well, and I do want to bring in what she said. So it's not just money though. Like, I'm a Marine and a police officer, and God is always there before something we pray. And I don't know if it's a moral booster or what, but there should be a separation in my opinion. And I agree. And I commonly will see the argument like, well, just don't say it. Well, imagine for a second if we replaced it with saying Allah. Do you really think Christians would then be like, hey, yeah, that's fine. Let's say Allah. Or would they be the first ones like, you're not putting Allah on my money.
No, I agree.
Doing that.
I agree with you on that. I think I think that's where separation of church and state is really important. To have those freedoms, because absolutely, if the government came out and said we're gonna change under God to Allah or anything else, the Christian community would be the first to just like jump up and go, no, you cannot do that. We have freedom of religion and you can't but you have this side. Right. So I think there is in navigating the importance of being together you have to break down, before religion. I think you have to, like we were talking about earlier, you just have to break down and go back to, let's level the playing field, right? Of here is the rights and privileges that we have because I have a heartbeat, so to speak. And so that is, if everybody can agree where, that just because, whether you have faith or not, you should be able to marry, you should be able to marry who you want to marry.
Right. As long as they're two consenting adults.
As long as they're two consenting adults. I don't believe in marrying a cat. Sorry. Sorry, Stephanie.
Although I wouldn't marry my cat at this rate, I mean, he's my baby, so it's like I don't have kids. Now's where the rubber meets the road here. Then you cannot say I will not listen to that. Okay, I'm only joking. I am not serious. Just for humor purposes. No.
Right. I love it when people say, no, my animal is my kid. I'm like, sure, the moment I put my kid in a cage and walk away for the day is the day I go to jail. You put your dog in a cage and walk away every day and you don't go to jail. So
to be clear, me personally, I do not agree with that. I don't think animals should be in cages. Obviously, there are circumstances they can't just be all roaming free, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah. And
like if I have a dog and I go to work and I put him in the cage for the day, or give him this little area to run around in, and give him a bowl of food and a bowl of water, I can come back 12 hours later and he may have peed on the floor, but he's not gonna have he's not gonna die.
I should clarify, when I said I don't have kids, I just have a cat, meaning it's the closest thing I have. Like, I would never ever think raising children is remotely comparable to raising a cat. Not even close.
You'd be surprised.
It's just, well, my cat is he's a little shit sometimes.
They claw, don't they?
Oh, my cat is feral. So he has been biting and attacking. If you wear long sleeves, he attacks you. I have not slept under a blanket in 2 months because he bites in as hard as he can. He's such a jerk, but I love him to death.
Hey, I like that comment that Sean put up a few minutes ago. Yeah, that one right there.
Adam and Mary didn't get married under church, though, like marriage is done today. Yeah. On that one too, Larry said Adam and Eve first marriage.
So where were we going with that?
So we were trying to, I guess the base topic was we were trying to figure out if Christians and atheists coexist. And to be clear, so far, it sounds like we agree. We're on 3 points so far. We agreed on removing God. We agreed on separation from church and state. And then, sorry, I should correct myself. Did we agree on allowing gay marriages to happen? Not saying you're personally okay with it from your religious aspect, but from the government standpoint.
From a government standpoint, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I agree.
So far, we're at 3 points. So you and I need to start our own society, because clearly we are doing something right here.
But they have to have tie-dyed shirts to come into this society. That's.
I started with atheist t-shirts, and then I'm like, that puts me in a box, and this is more fun. So I started buying just all these ridiculous shirts.
Nice. I figured, being a Christian, showing up with a Led Zeppelin shirt on today would be a good indication of where I stand in life.
Absolutely. It humanizes you, because that's the point of this discussion is
exactly. So yeah, so far we are in agreement, which is cool. I think let's see. No, we don't have very much. Well, we still have
I'd really, because this is kind of on the right track, to both of you. To what extent, if at all, do you believe that religion should be taught in public or government-funded schools? Where I stand, I'm okay with religions as a whole being taught, as long as they're not taught as scientific fact. But in my opinion, don't just teach Christianity. Teach about all religions. I'm totally okay with that. Just remove the prayer and remove it as teaching it as historical fact. Not scientific fact, historical fact.
Do you like science?
I love science. I wish I was smart enough to understand most of it.
Do you know where science came from?
Are you going to say Christianity?
Not Christianity per se, but who was considered the father of science? Do you know?
My atheist friends are probably screaming at me right now. I don't know. They're literally probably like, "What is wrong with you? You're supposed to know this."
Oh, I can't remember the guy's name.
Oh my!
Dawkins.
I can't believe.
Dawkins.
No, Galileo.
No.
Oh,
Galileo.
This is
Galileo.
embarrassing.
Galileo. Yes.
I'm sorry, my atheist friends. I should know that.
And why did he start Galileo was a Christian, right? So Christianity didn't start science, but Galileo created science, and if your scientific community in there wants to try to prove me wrong, that's fine too. But
he didn't create science.
He didn't create science, but he's he's considered the father of science,
right?
At least of astronomy.
Here,
I'll put it that way.
Pioneered the experimental scientific method.
There we go. That's good. And why did he do that? Because he wanted to expand his knowledge of God. If I'm correct, I want to say he was a theologian, but I don't quote me and don't hold me to the fire on that because I can't remember. But so like I feel like God created everything. He created the stars. He created the ability for us to explore science. When we, it's like we look up and we have all these constellations. I don't think they were just like randomly put there by happenstance. And so I think there is, to me, I can look in nature and I can see, okay, there is a God and he exists. Have you seen, this is about 15 years old now, but have you seen, you were a kid when it came out. Do you know who Ben Stein is?
Absolutely.
Okay, so have you seen Expelled? Have you watched that documentary you had about 15 years ago?
I have not.
It's a good one for you to. It's a good one for you to watch because it's really relevant to the question that you had about being religion and science being taught in schools. So I don't see anything wrong. In fact, I mean I believe in intelligent design. I believe in science. I believe that science exists for us to explore and learn about different things. I don't think when it comes to being taught in school, I think I don't know who put the question.
Oh, it was Puck. Sorry. Let me jump back to that. To both.
Okay.
Religion should be taught in school, public or government-funded schools.
Religion should be taught. I guess to answer your question, Puck, it would be more like what aspects of religion are we talking about? Like a religious class that I would take in college? Are we talking about high school? I would venture to say we're probably talking about high school, junior high school, because it's an elective class right. in college. If it was taught in high schools the way it was taught in college, I think there would be no issues. I believe. I think it should be discussed in schools.
Agreed.
I think so. When I was in school, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you. So when I was in junior high, I remember going through my science class. I think it was 7th grade, and our biology teacher, who was an atheist, when we were talking about evolution, I was asking about creationism, and he said, I don't. He goes, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in that. We don't teach that here. For this class, we're teaching you evolution. The theory of evolution, and where I might say a word or two about creation if it comes into the conversation appropriately, we won't be discussing it and we won't be teaching it. And for me, I was like, okay, because to answer your question, I don't think school teachers have the background to teach religion.
That's true. So should it be limited to a theology class?
I think it would be good to have theology class.
Agreed.
I think it would be. I think in a science class, I think that in the theory of intelligent design, from a scientific standpoint, I think should be given time to say here is a theory that most people, I won't say most people, but a good majority of people believe in intelligent design. A good majority of people believe in evolution.
Right.
I think evolution exists. If anything, the Bible taught me that we do evolve. The Bible taught me, my college taught me that microevolution, evolution, macroevolution does exist. Right. I just don't believe it to the degree that the major scientists, and the reason I bring up Ben Stein and that movie Expelled is because when 15 years ago when people would, like, seasoned tenured professors would bring up the word intelligent design, not even talking about like there was a lady who was fired from her job and blacklisted in the scientific community after 30 some years, I think it was, because she mentioned the words intelligent design inside of 2 sentences in a peer reviewed paper. So it's no. And so I think there's and so I think there is. I think the challenge becomes, what we learn in school, is, why do we have school? Government created schools so that we have rows of people because we were coming into the Industrial Revolution. So if we could put everybody in rows, if you're a Pink Floyd fan, this is a really good one when it comes to Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, right? Right. Like that whole meat grinding factory scene from The Wall is exactly, the sense of how we have the education system, how it began is to have everybody sit down, shut up, learn this way, and that's how you do it. So you stay in line and you don't buck the system. So to ask to say, should religion be taught in school? That's such a huge, that's such a huge conversation to have. I don't think it should be not avoided. I don't think it should be necessarily pushed any more than anything else. Okay.
So I want to get to Sean's comment here. Scientific fact is taught about the Big Bang, which is not proven. So that's not correct. It is not scientific fact. It is the best. It is a model. It's the best explanation we currently have available. So until such as one proves itself better than that theory, I'm going to stick with the Big Bang. Which brings me to a question for you. Do you think the universe is 13.9 billion years old? Or where do you fall?
I would fall under the camp of being a young Earth creationist, I guess. I think if you have to hold my hand to the fire.
So you would say, just for clarification, you think the Earth is no more than just over 6,000 years old? Is that correct?
6,000? Is that what young Earth? Is that?
Yeah. For a young Earth creationist, Larry, feel free to correct me in the comments. I'm pretty sure it's just over 6,000.
Is Larry our theologian?
Yeah, I guess he'd be the local one that I would
Your local
consider credible.
You're a local theologian, Larry.
Yes, he was actually the first person I ever quote debated when it was first starting as a debate and not a discussion.
Oh, cool. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know, and I really don't have an opinion, honestly. It doesn't sway me so much in the sense of the big picture for me and God. Maybe God did create a bang that made the earth. Maybe he just formed it. Maybe his formation of it was through a big bang. Okay. I don't know.
So it could be. So I don't want to misrepresent you. Would you say you're open to the possibility that it's 13.9 billion years old, or is this a hard line for you and you say no, it's definitely within this 6,000-year-old period? And I don't know. Too.
I don't have a hard line with that.
Okay.
Mostly because I don't study it enough to have a hard line. But for me, that's when there's that's the part of the mystery of the world that none of us really know.
Right.
I believe this truth, you believe that truth, but none of us really know until we know. Right? Like
that's true.
We don't physically, tangibly know what's going to happen to us after death until we die. But I know what I feel to be true, and I know that you can't. We don't want to base everything around feelings because our feelings come and go.
Absolutely.
But there is. I mean, we all have this gut instinct inside of us that tells us what is right and what is wrong, and so my gut tells me that I don't have to have that answer to believe that there's a God.
That's totally acceptable. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, so if anyone has any comments or questions for either of us, please jump in.
We're going to have to do a part 2 of this.
I agree. I'd love to. I want to backtrack to one question. Actually, before I get to this question, I do just want to plug my next few episodes real quick. April 7th, Joel Sedicase will be back, and the topic is faith and truth. That is the one that is remaining in debate format. Our first one, he ran through me very easily. So this time I've been training. I'm getting excited.
So in other words, he debunked you, and you want to continue.
I don't want to say he debunked me, but
you sound like a Darwinist. I'm just kidding.
He ran through me pretty easily. I was not as prepared as I should have been. So the 14th is going to be Lucas Goliath. I don't want to misquote his degrees. Larry, if you could throw him in the comments. He has his bachelor's in physics. I forgot his other double major, but the topic is science and God. And he said science is what got him to God. The week after that is going to be... I know, I'm excited about that one because I think people underestimate my excitement for knowledge and learning and just how much that if a God is out there, I want to know. Like, I want the proof. And that's why whenever I've ended my talks with Larry or anyone else, I'm not joking when I say pray for me. Although I personally don't believe prayer works, I want the truth. So please, pray to God, ask him to reveal himself to me. Because if he's out there, I absolutely want to know. And then last episode, not last episode, but 421 is going to be Larry DeLindy again at 6:30. And then this Thursday, I'm hosting live trivia at 7 p.m. In case anyone wants to join. But on to this question, which is totally backtracking. How do you feel about people leaving their inheritance wills to their pets? So I guess this is kind of, for me, a two-part thing. I would need to make sure that and I don't even want to call him my pet, my little baby is taken care of. I think there's at this point one person that has agreed to watch him, and I would trust for taking him. I think at this point. But I would make sure that my cat has enough. I can't help it. I love him to death. But no, I would not leave him everything because at the end of the day, humans come first. Most likely, I'd want my money to go to my family and charity. What's your opinion?
Well, I kind of look at it this way. I'll make it real simple for me. If I talk to my dog and I say, "Hey, what did you have for dinner?" and he says to me, "I had steak, Steve," then I would leave my inheritance to him. But right now he says, so I don't know what he's saying. Therefore, sorry, and I don't mean to be rude, Isabella, if you are a fur baby mama.
Oh,
and
I don't think that was rude at all. Not by any means.
There's
I'll take your cat, Stephanie. Don't worry. If you die, send him my way. Although I must warn you, my cat is crazy. To give you an example, we recently got a pit bull, and the pit bull guards my cat because my cat scares the crap out of him. So literally now my little cat has this guard dog pit bull walking him around the house. Like, how does a cat do that? Like, so fair warning, Stephanie, he might be in charge.
And that's the other thing. Like, even if you leave your inheritance to your pet, somebody will have to actually physically take care of them.
Absolutely.
It's not like Bingo is going down to the store and be like, "Hey, can I get a pound of dog food and strap it to my back?" Right? It's that. I know that pets are important to people.
Yes.
I am myself a dog lover. I'm not a cat lover. I mean, I love to eat barbecued cat. I'm rotisserie after I'm just kidding.
You and I were going to have our first issue.
Well, see, so religion we can coexist on, but animals we can't.
No. So to give you an example, and I used to be, so I will like if right now you said in order to survive, Brandon, Ethan, you have to hunt an animal. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. I take that back. If I was literally going to die, but although I'm a meat eater, I understand where vegans are coming from when they use the moral argument. In my opinion, it is morally virtuous to not eat meat, even though, again, I eat it.
To who?
Well, I think it's morally virtuous for us, and then
Why?
obviously respecting me, because animals can feel pain, and I mean.
So this is why we're going to do a part 2, because this is, or we should have had 2 hours to do this, because this is where the big, I think, rub comes in is on the moral time, because I think we can find common ground on pretty much anything, even ethics. To a large degree, we can find super huge common ground, and I think it's the moral issues where it becomes challenging, not impossible,
right?
But challenging. And so maybe part 2 we should write this down. Part 2 is going to be the morality of atheists and Christians living together.
I like that. I really like that one.
Because that's really, I mean, we spend our time, prepping it, but really that's where I think the biggest rub would come in, right. Because I like, since we're on animals, like I feel like, I believe that God created certain animals for certain things. Mm-hmm. I believe that horses weren't necessarily created for us to eat. They were created for us to use for work. Because they're thus the name workhorse, I guess. But they are an animal that I think every animal has a place. I think in a simple term for me, it's like if animals were supposed to be on the exact same playing field and level that we would be able to communicate with them,
right?
Completely. Not that we can't, because right. I can teach my dog. I can teach I can teach a cow. I can teach most animals how to do certain things. But I feel like 70 years ago, this conversation about morality of eating of animals wasn't as prevalent. Either it wasn't
absolutely.
And part of that is the humane way in which animals were used for our food, versus how they're used now.
So I guess a follow-up question would be, and this might be too long to go into, but how would we determine? So you believe God created all animals for a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we determine, if he hasn't listed every animal, which one for which purpose? Like, how do we know which ones are for eating? How do we know which ones are for... I don't know what you're doing.
We have brains.
Yeah. But then, again, I can do that. But if you're saying, God,
no, I that is a. I think it's too much of a question to answer now.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
But there is, like, if you think about, you have a pit bull. Perfect example. Pit bulls were bred. I don't know if you knew this. Pit bulls were bred 100 years ago or so to be a nursery dog. Their entire job was to lay in the bed, in the crib with a baby and alert the parents if something was wrong with the baby.
Right.
That was what they were bred for. Now you say pit bull, 99% of the people that if you say the word pit bull to are going to duck and cover because they think a pit bull's going to attack them. Right. And so it's, yeah, that's a big question. That's a good one.
I want you to think about that for next time.
Okay.
So before, if anyone has any quick comments, I'm going to go into closing real quick, which is going to be very fast. It sounds like, based on this first conversation, while we're not in agreement, everything from a religious standpoint, we are actually in agreement on our first 3 steps of building a society where atheists and Christians can coexist. Is that correct?
I would agree.
That makes me happy. I think this is the first talk I've had where we've agreed so much. And that's pretty cool. That's surprising. I was not expecting this.
I think I think what it comes down to is and obviously we don't know each other very well. We've only had one other conversation. Right. But we there's a human element of us and a human element, a common sense element that life. I think life is bigger than just you and me. Our lives are bigger than just what we do. Right. And so to create a relationship with somebody, there has to be a give and take. Right. And sometimes those give and takes are little, sometimes those give and takes are big. There's not necessarily compromise, but it's more of collaboration. And so, as we were talking, like, I really love talking to people who have different opinions than I do.
Same.
This would be good. Should I say the story I told you on the phone the other day about what I used to do?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I at one point when I was growing up, when I would talk to somebody who had a different belief, like you, I would sit there and be like, oh wow, that's really, really interesting. I love that thought. And my literal thought in my brain was, when I die and go to heaven and take the glass elevator tour of hell, I will wave to you and say hi. And that, when I went through seminary, is actually when Jesus became more real to me, more radically different, and how I should be living my life if I'm calling myself a Christian. Okay. To where now I can have these conversations with somebody. I'm like really, really intrigued about how you got to where you're at, and I don't even, like, you might be taking the glass elevator tour of heaven and talking to me, but generally speaking, like, I want to know where people come from, and it's not my job to judge. Like we started off saying, with judgment, it's if somebody calls themselves a Christian, I have every right to judge their walk. But if you're not a Christian, I have no right to judge your walk, and it's not even my place to to convert you to Christianity. My job, is to plant the seed.
Absolutely. And so, I welcome those seeds. I really do. I do want to have one hardline question for you.
Okay.
I ask this of everyone, but preferably I'd like to avoid an I don't know if you can. Okay. So this is only speaking from my own personal experience. I work very hard to do everything I can to be there for everybody in my life, to build people up, to work with them, to understand everyone's position. And I'd like to think I live my life to the best ability for the people around me as I can. Now, if my only setback is that my position is, hey, God, I want to believe in you, but I need evidence to do that. Am I going to hell?
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Oh, wait, you wanted to avoid that question, that answer. Well, does hell even really exist? First of all, you have to back that question up.
We'll stop right there. I think that's a perfect. That's where we continue next time.
Okay,
I like that. Did you have any closing remarks you'd like to say?
Thanks. I appreciate the time. I appreciate hooking the connection. Dawn, I think she's on here too.
Dawn. Let me just put her face up here real quick. Dawn, thank you so much for introducing us. I am so happy this worked out. Steve is an awesome guy. Totally caught me off guard. And great radio voice, by the way, which I told you in the pre-show.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to WLS. I would say the Loop FM, but the Loop is now gone. Look at that. The Loop has now become a Christian radio station. Da, 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 da. Hasn't it? The Loop is now gone in Chicago, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't really listen to the radio.
What?
Yeah, I know. I haven't listened to the radio in a long time.
See, that's how I know the devil is real, because the radio is going down. But no, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it. I would love to come back on and continue the conversation.
That makes me happy. All right. Stand by for a moment. I'm going to end. Everyone, please, if you could, go on YouTube, like, subscribe. Let me know what topic you'd like us to touch base on next. I've got several interviews lined up every week, but any ones you want us to expand on, please let me know. And as always, I hope everyone has a safe, and most importantly, stay healthy and stay inside. Thanks again, Steve. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
No worries. Thanks.